Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be showcasing a powerful team that helped a trainer climb over 200 points to legend rank in the Fantasy Cup using FERROTHORN to shut down AZUMARILL. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community and fellow content creator Felrose, so many thanks for the battle submission. On the lead, Turtonator, one of the strongest Pokemon in the meta. On the safe switch, Flygon, extremely deadly with an energy advantage, and as the closer, FERROTHORN to shut down AZUMARILL. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's check out the team in action. Hopping into the first match, going up against a tough competitor, Caleb Peng, but picking up an amazing lead, Turtonator into a Escavalier. It looks like Caleb is ABA weak to Turtonator, forced to stay in with the Escavalier. It does not make it to a move. Caleb sends in the AZUMARILL, and now we see an immediate switch into the FERROTHORN. FERROTHORN, of course, is the hard counter to the AZUMARILL. Opponent here is going to switch into their own FERROTHORN, choosing to go for the Power Whip. Ideally, you do want to go for the Thunder in these situations as it's only single resisted, but either way, neither charge attack is going to do a lot of damage. So a very nice read here to switch out of that matchup once AZUMARILL was brought in, understanding that Caleb had to be ABA weak to fire, saving the Turtonator, and now Turtonator is going to be able to handle this FERROTHORN very nicely. Switch clock is coming up, in comes the Turtonator, and these Incinerates are going to be doing a truly massive amount of damage. That Power Whip, not going to do a lot. Turtonator, unable to get the farm down, as Caleb is able to save the FERROTHORN and send in the AZUMARILL. The Flamethrower will be shielded by the Azu. Interesting choice here, as it does also get access to Overheat. Overheat, of course, does hit for more damage, but it does come with a cost of debuffing your attack every time you use it. The opponent is going to be firing off energy here. We see a no shield from the Turtonator. Turtonator able to absorb that energy, and back in comes the FERROTHORN with energy. FERROTHORN firing off the Power Whip. That's going to be shielded up by the AZUMARILL. FERROTHORN unable to make Power Whip number 2, but this is where the 2 shields come in clutch. We're now going to see a switch into the Flygon, anticipating the combo play with the FERROTHORN. That's a beautiful play. And at this point, this game is definitely over. Flygon is going to be shielding up as the FERROTHORN fires off the Power Whip, and Flygon can choose to massively overfarm here and go for the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw is resisted, but this FERROTHORN has just taken too much damage. It will pick up the KO. Back in comes the AZUMARILL. AZUMARILL to be met with a Scorching Sands. The Scorching Sands not quite going to KO the Azu here, but Flygon is going to get the Mud Shot down and take that game. Moving into the next match, leading Turtonator into Shadow Magnezone, a very cool pick from the opponent. Opponent is going to save switch into Galarian Weezing. Now, Galarian Weezing in this cup is typically going to be running Sludge and Overheat. I would say it's the most common moveset, and we do see here this opponent going for the Sludge. A situation like this is where Flamethrower is kind of nice, because you can go for Flamethrower, and of course your attack is not debuffed. We're now going to see a switch into the Flygon, and this is a tough call to make. Do you call that the Sludge Overheat? We see the shield, and it is going to be on the resisted Overheat. So Flygon will now be able to massively overfarm here. The opponent's moveset is known. They do not have anything that can even hit the Flygon for neutral. Opponent is actually going to be able to save the Weezing as the switch timer comes up and send in AZUMARILL. But AZUMARILL is honestly not a terrible matchup for Flygon if it has shields, or in this case, if it has a very big energy advantage. 2 Scorching Sands connect. This Azu is already incredibly low on HP. Azu forced to fire off energy, and Flygon is going to be committing a shield. Flygon going for the Scorching Sands, only 1 shield left for the opponent, and the remainder of their team does take super effective or double super effective damage from ground types. We do see the opponent send in the Weezing. Weezing now going to be met with a double resisted Dragon Claw. The Dragon Claw does get shielded. Opponent is going to be able to pick up a knockout here with a Sludge, but then, their Magnezone is going to have to deal with this Turtonator. In comes the Turtonator. The Volt Switch is not doing a whole lot, as Turtonator is able to make it to a Flamethrower. That's going to be goodbye to the Magnezone. All that's left in the back is the Weezing, and the opponent concedes the match. Moving into the next match, leading Turtonator into AZUMARILL. Very poor lead here for the Turtonator, but we are going to see the save switch into the Flygon. Now, AZUMARILL, of course, can still hit for either single or double super effective damage onto the Flygon, but in the 2 shield, Flygon does have the ability to flip this, especially if it is a play rough AZUMARILL, and it looks like this opponent does not have the cheaper Ice Beam. Scorching Sands fired off by the Flygon, that is going to connect, and we do not see an attack drop. But Flygon continuing to farm, firing off yet another Scorching Sands, as Flygon does have a pretty big pacing advantage here. Opponent is going to no-shield the second move as well. The attack debuff does come through, but that's still not going to be enough enough to prevent a play rough from knocking out. Flygon massively over farming here, going for the double resisted Dragon Claw. The Dragon Claw is going to connect, and one more Mud Shot is going to win switch advantage. Opponent sending in Lucario, and we do see a bait from the Flygon here. Is the opponent brave enough to call it? They are not. But the Scorching Sands is unable to be reached. In comes the Turtonator. In the back, it's Registeel, and the opponent running ABA Steel types has nowhere to run versus the Turtonator. Turtonator goes for the Flamethrower. That does massive damage. We now see a switch into the Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn going to look for the Bullet Seed farm down here as the Focus Blast connects, dealing massive damage. Ferrothorn cannot get the farm down. The Registeel on 1 HP makes it to the Focus Blast, and that picks up the KO. It's all up to Turtonator to try and close this game. Lucario does have energy though, which does make this scary. Can Turtonator hang on here? Lucario going for a power-up punch, so they must be running power-up punch and Blaze Kick. They did not have Shadow Ball, and that is going to be a win. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Turtonator into Registeel. Opponent save switches into Flygon, farming up 2 Incinerates and sending in Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn can do pretty decently into the Flygon, but being down this much energy, Flygon definitely has the upper hand, even more so when the first Scorching Sands does get the attack debuff. This means its Power Whip is very comfortably survived by the Flygon. Flygon gonna fire off another Scorching Sands here. We are going to see a shield from the Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn does not get debuffed this time. Ferrothorn is gonna make it to another Power Whip, putting pressure on the first shield from the opponent. They do have some energy, so they are going to expend a shield. They're going to continue to overfarm quite a lot, and this is a really tough decision point in the match, as of course the opponent has a lot of energy on the Flygon, and there isn't really a lot of good fast move pressure remaining to remove it from the field. Choosing to go into the mirror, but unfortunately, the Flygon gets 1 turn bring-in, so it doesn't get the Mud Shot sneak that it should. Dragon Claw is going to connect, and unfortunately, that failed sneak of a Mud Shot looms large as the opponent on 1 HP makes it to a last-second Dragon Claw. Down a shield, this is going to be tough. Is the opponent going to send in the Registeel here? Yes, and Registeel will immediately be answered with a Scorching Sands. This will not be enough to get the one-hit KO, so the opponent is going to no-shield. In the back, they have Shadow Gabite of all things. Oh my goodness. Going to fire off the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw will get shielded. Continuing to farm up, making it to the Dragon Claw, but losing charge attack priority. Shadow Gabite able to win CMP here as the Dig picks up the KO. But this means Turtonator is now going to get to connect with the Dragon Pulse, and Shadow Gabite is not tanky. The Dragon Pulse will pick up the knockout. Back in comes the Registeel, and this Turtonator is not in Focus Blast range. So this is just going to be a game win. As the opponent goes for the Focus Blast, Turtonator does not care, withstanding the Focus Blast and picking up the win thanks to Flamethrower. Hopping into the next match, and we've got a battle of turtles, Turtonator versus Turtonator. Now this is a lead matchup that's typically going to be dictated by who wins charge attack priority. Farming up energy here, going for the Dragon Pulse, and I didn't see an Incinerate Stink, so it looks like that was charge attack priority. The Dragon Pulse will be shielded up by the opponent. Somehow it wasn't, so maybe they got a sneak through, or unfortunately the opponent just got denied their fast move due to a little bit of lag. The Dragon Pulse will be shielded. We now see a catch by the opponent as they're able to make a Dragon Pulse catch onto AZUMARILL. But now as the Turtonator, you can just farm up, rebank the energy, and send in FERROTHORN. And FERROTHORN is just AZUMARILL's worst nightmare in this cup. My goodness. They go for the Ice Beam, and FERROTHORN just does not care. FERROTHORN, Ice Beam number 2, not going to be a problem whatsoever. The Ice Beam is going to connect. FERROTHORN building up to the back-to-back Power Whips. Power Whip number 1 will connect with the AZUMARILL, dealing massive damage. FERROTHORN looking for the farm down and getting the farm down as well. In comes the Turtonator. Unfortunately, neither charge move is going to do a lot of damage here. The Thunder will connect, but that's really not going to do a lot. We now see a switch back into the Turtonator after the FERROTHORN gets KO'd. The Dragon Pulse is shielded, and now a switch into the Flygon. Flygon going to be shielding up the Dragon Pulse. You can't hold back-to-back Dragon Pulses, so you're safe to throw at least 2 in the move. But in the back, the opponent has Slurpuff. Slurpuff going to be hit with the Scorching Sands. That's going to do a sizable chunk of damage and getting the attack drop as well. Slurpuff, this could potentially be a Play Rough or an Energy Ball. It is just going to be the Energy Ball, and Energy Ball is not going to be enough to KO. A very nice overfarm here by the Flygon, as Flygon will be able to use the Scorching Sands to pick up this KO, and a Scorching Sands number 2 to KO the Turtonator. Very nice energy management in the end game, and that's a good game. Moving into the next match, leading Turtonator into Shadow Alolan Sandslash. What a lead. Opponent is going to throw one Shadow Claw, save switch into AZUMARILL, and it's just honestly bringing a smile to my face to see AZUMARILL just get absolutely destroyed by FERROTHORN. Oh my goodness. The Power Whip connects. That does a ton of damage. It's a CMP tie, and again, that's just not going to be a problem for the FERROTHORN. The Azu goes for Hydro Pump, so they are not even running Ice Beam. They're running Play Rough, and they're running Hydro. FERROTHORN choosing to massively overfarm here, going for the Power Whip to pick up the KO, and this way, only being one move off a Thunder, the opponent realizes they're probably not going to be winning that one, and they resign the match. We see a Core Breaker on the lead in the next match, Turtonator into Haxorus. We're going to see a save switch, oh my goodness, into the Flygon, and the opponent makes a beautiful catch, catching the Dragon Claw onto Skarmory. This is about the worst case scenario start to a game that you could have here, as the Haxorus is able to bank a bunch of energy, and Skarmory is just an absolute wall to energy from Flygon. Flygon firing off Scorching Sands after Scorching Sands, and guess what? Skarmory does not care. Skarmory is going to get the full farm down here. In comes the Turtonator, but Turtonator is going to be hit with a Brave Bird, which is going to do quite a lot of damage. The opponent went for a Sky Attack, hoping to get to a second charge attack, and they're not able to get there. Haxorus farming up here, going to fire off the Breaking Swipe. That's going to be shielded by the Turtonator, and Turtonator is going to return fire with the Dragon Pulse. But this feels like a pretty safe shield for the opponent on the Haxorus. Turtonator continues to farm. We see the switch into the FERROTHORN. FERROTHORN farming up quite a lot of energy, but so is the Haxorus, committing the shield. Haxorus goes for the Earthquake. That is a massive shield there, as Earthquake is a lot of energy used by the opponent. Power Whip does get shielded. FERROTHORN continuing to farm, making it to the Power Whip, but unfortunately losing charge attack priority. Opponent made it to another Earthquake. Back in comes the Turtonator. Turtonator unable to get the farm down, and that's game over. Moving into the next match, and a familiar lead returns, Turtonator into Shadow Magnezone. Opponent save switches into Dragalge. What a cool pick from the opponent. Oh my goodness. We're going to see a counter switch into the Flygon here, and Dragalge definitely a core breaker for this team. Now the Flygon has overfarmed massively, going to fire off the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw is going to be shielded here. Unfortunately, unable to make the Scorching Sands, forced to just settle for another Dragon Claw. The opponent is going to let that through, and we do see Dragalge get the farm down. In comes FERROTHORN. FERROTHORN not quite able to get the farm down. Dragalge on 1 HP makes it to the Gunk Shot, and that move did not look resistant. That did quite a lot of damage. Back in comes the Magnezone. Magnezone going to take a lot of damage from the Power Whip though. A Shadow Magnezone, not the tankiest mon around. We're going to see another Power Whip fired off here. This will come very close to knocking out. The Power Whip connects the switch into the Turtonator, and unable to get the farm down. The Magnezone able to make the last second mirror shot. What do they have in the back? It's AZUMARILL, and this is definitely going to be an uphill battle. The good news is FERROTHORN is still alive in the back, but the bad news is that this Turtonator doesn't have a lot of damage output. Turtonator is going to no-shield as Azu fires off some energy. Azu goes for the Ice Beam. Turtonator able to withstand the damage and go for another Flamethrower. After this Flamethrower, this will comfortably be Power Whip range on the Azu, but Azu is going to get a lot of farm here, and this is going to be tough. In comes the FERROTHORN. FERROTHORN is just going to no-shield here as Azu fires off the Ice Beam, and unfortunately the Azu is going to be able to get that bubble down. Moving into the next match, we see a very tough lead Turtonator into Flygon. An opposing Flygon on the lead is very difficult because if you save switch into your own Flygon and they throw their Dragon Claw as soon as they get it, then you're always going to be one mud shot behind. And that's exactly what the opponent does here. Flygon continuing to farm up. Opponent does not go for a catch, so this Dragon Claw is either going to do big damage or grab a shield. Opponent is actually going to play to a CMP tie. That's quite a surprise there from the opponent. The Dragon Claw is going to be double shielded by the opponent, and now we just see a no shield. Perfectly happy with just taking shield advantage. The Dragon Claw connects, continuing to farm. Opponent firing off energy here. do we see a shield? We do see the shield come up. Does the opponent try and go for a switch? They do. They send in Dedenne. They were trying to go for a catch of a Dragon Claw, but they have no shields left. This Scorching Sands just picks up the KO, and switch advantage is won. And they can't really send in their own Flygon because they're going to be hit with a Dragon Claw. Opponent not getting the catch, and suddenly it all goes wrong. We see the switch into the Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn looking for the farm down of the Flygon. Flygon is going to make it to a last second charge attack, but it is only going to be the Dragon Claw. In the back, it's Registeel. This is not a good matchup for the Ferrothorn, but of course there's still the full health Turtonator. So the opponent did have an advantage in the Flygon mirror, but playing to charge attack priority, losing it, going down a shield, and then failing a catch, put them in a position where suddenly the game was very losable. The Thunder is going to connect onto the Registeel. Registeel gets the farm down, but guess what? It's Turtonator time. In comes the Turtonator to take that victory. And we move into one final match against Tho Tactical, leading Turtonator into Whimsicott. We're now going to see a switch into his own Turtonator, and he concedes the match right there. So it looks like Tho unfortunately did not have a great response to a Turtonator save switch. These were some battles. I don't necessarily have them in the right order here, but as you can see, he does claim the 5-0 set to hit Legend, so big congratulations. All in all, in a meta that is basically dominated by Azumarill, having a Pokemon like Ferrothorn on the team that can just shut it down, as we see in these battles, proves to be a very helpful thing. And Turtonator, of course, while it is definitely weak to Azumarill, does so well into just about everything else in this meta. Its ability to not only tank a hit surprisingly well, but its ability to just shut down basically any steel type that you encounter definitely makes it a valuable addition. And on top of that, Flygon, I mean, there's a reason why it was the first Pokemon that I featured in this meta. Flygon up energy is just an absolute menace. So again, congrats to Zaire and very nice job on the team. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.